Good afternoon. Again, my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group, a financial services company here in Oakland. We offer financial planning, taxes, and accounting. I've worked with Alameda County employees, and I've had a contract with Alameda County since 2009. So I can't believe the time has flown by so far. I'm a licensed stockbroker. I've been licensed for roughly 18 years, helping my clients create wealth and maintain their wealth. But most importantly, I'm a certified retirement counselor. And my goal as a certified retirement counselor is to help you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. And when Mike earlier talked about, most financial planners say 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income is sufficient. Like I said, my goal is to help you maintain your current lifestyle at 100%. At least we can make that attempt. If we need to settle for 90 or settle for 80, so be it. But let's try as hard as we can to see if we can get you to 100%. And one of the ways in which to get to 100% is to invest in your deferred compensation plan. And I'm going to take roughly 30 minutes to talk a little bit about the importance of the plan. Okay. Let's see. Compensation plan, right? As Mike talked about it earlier.
Hey, Gene, did something change, or your voice is getting a little computery?
If you do 100 years. Oh, is it? Okay. How is it now? It's still the same?
I heard a little bit of computeriness in it whenever you just said something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still happening.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, my internet. Okay. All right, I tried that. How's that? Still the same?
Okay, that sounds good.
That sounds good?
Yep, so far.
Okay.
So far,
Well,
so
just let me know if it starts to become a little. So far, okay, perfect. So why saving? You're looking at, and I made a joke earlier. You stay with the county 100 years, right? You'll get 50% of your salary. That was just a joke. But I'd say best case scenario, you're looking at roughly 50% of your salary. And so deferred comp will allow you the ability, like I said before, to possibly get to 90, possibly get to 100% of your salary. So that's one of the main reasons why it's important to invest in deferred comp. Right now, Social Security is a little unstable. Life expectancies have increased over time. 50 years ago, life expectancy was roughly in the 50s. Now people are easily living into their 80s and 90s. So that requires your money to go a lot further than a lot of people expected. One of the factors that may affect your retirement is inflation. That's the cost of goods and services going up over time. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, how much was a gallon of gas when I was a kid? How much was your PG&E when you were in grade school? Right? The costs of goods and services typically go up over time. How much is healthcare prices increasing over time? Right? Many of you should expect to receive a stipend from Acera to cover your healthcare, but it's not going to cover 100%, especially if you're looking to pay for healthcare prior to Medicaid age. So you have to keep that in mind. And then, as I mentioned before, the cost of living is continuously going up over time, right? So saving towards retirement, saving in deferred comp is extremely important. Why should you invest? Some more reasons why you should invest in deferred comp. Well, number one, it reduces your taxable income. So let's say hypothetically, you make $50,000 a year with the county. And let's say hypothetically, you are investing $5,000 into deferred comp pre-tax. Instead of being taxed on 50,000, you're being taxed on 45,000. So that's huge. So if you're currently getting a tax refund and you've decided to put money into deferred comp pre-tax, 9 times out of 10, you should expect a higher refund. So hey, it's not going to hurt anyone to put a little extra money in your pocket. But just keep in mind, you're deferring taxes today, but you will pay them in the future. But the whole idea is you're banking on the fact that you'll be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. You're deferring today because you're working at a 28% tax bracket. And maybe when you retire, you're making less money through Acera. You may find yourself in a 15% tax bracket. So that works for you. Defer today, pay later at a lower rate. But there are some of you that feel, as a country, we're running up debt as far as the eye can see. It appears that regardless of whether or not the Republicans are in office or the Democrats are in office, our national debt continues to rise, right? And there will be a day of reckoning, and that tax bill is going to become due. So, people are anticipating government may raise taxes on everyone. So in that particular case, if you think you're going to be in a higher tax bracket when you retire, obviously here it's important to go ahead and pay the taxes today. Pay the taxes today and avoid having to pay taxes in the future. So that's where the Roth version of deferred comp will make sense for you, right? You're deferring today, you're paying the taxes, and it's growing tax-free, right? So that's an option. You can increase or decrease at any time. So let's say hypothetically, the kids are out of school, it's summertime. My kids are 20 and 16, so I don't have to deal too much with this. But as I'm sure many of you are aware, summertime there's camps. Assuming that the economy is opening up, there's camps that you have to pay for. There's potentially summer school that you have to pay for. So there's karate lessons. So there's extra costs associated with having kids during the summer. So maybe you've decided that, hey, I want to stop contributing or lower the amount I'm contributing. Okay, so that is an option. Or say it's Christmas time. We're in December. I need to buy Christmas gifts. You have the ability to reduce the amount of money that you're contributing to deferred comp or even stopping altogether. Okay. Also, that's available in the plan is you get personalized support from retirement counselors. Myself, I'm available via Zoom calls. Hopefully, when the economy opens or we get our arms around this virus, I'll go back to one-on-one appointments personally at a variety of locations. But for the moment, we can do a phone call or we can do a Zoom call to meet to discuss retirement. And I have 2 colleagues that you can reach out to by the name of Mark Tomei, who's with Wells Fargo Advisors. And then you also have Jason Brummett, who's a guidance counselor with Prudential. Within the plan, there are 12 different investments, very high quality investments. If you're the type of person that's not interested in taking on any risk, you don't want to see your account go down in value at all, there is an investment available for you. It's called the Alameda County Stable Value Fund. It pays roughly 2%. There's absolutely no risk, right? If you're the type of person that is interested in investing in a mutual fund that focuses on companies that are helping the environment or at least considering the environment before they make their stock or investment picks, or corporate governance, those things are important to you. Socially responsible funds. Well, there's a mutual fund currently available in the plan called PAX. That's an investment that you might want to consider. There are many of you that probably believe that investing in index funds are extremely important because of the low cost of the internal expenses. Well, there are index funds available to you. And then there are other funds where you can, if you're looking to invest in a asset allocation, the appropriate asset allocation, There's the international investments, large cap mutual funds, medium-sized companies, small companies. You can invest in bonds to create your own portfolio. So that's, these are investments that you have the ability to invest in where you can create your own portfolio, but many of you need some help, right? So there's a couple of ways in which you can get some help. There's a online tool called Goalmaker. It's an award-winning program. You tell us what your investor profile is. I'm conservative, moderate, aggressive. You also tell us when you anticipate retiring. Is it age 65? Is it 55? Is it 45? Then the system will create a portfolio that makes sense for you and your family. And then last but not least, what I really like about deferred comp, unlike a traditional IRA, unlike a 401k or 403b, you have access to your money penalty-free, right? So let's say hypothetically you've invested in deferred comp. Over time, you're 50 years old and you want to start withdrawing from your account. You've left county service. You have access to your money without that 10% penalty. The only thing you're on the hook for is taxes. 403b, 401k, most IRAs, if you access your money before you're 59 and a half, you're taxed and you're penalized. So you don't have that drawback in deferred comp. Okay. The other huge benefit of deferred comp is that it's simple. It's very easy. Money comes directly out of your paycheck and it's investing. And I like this chart because it says, hey, when you don't see it, you don't miss it, and therefore you don't spend it. There was a time before there were these types of programs where you got paid, you looked at all your bills, you paid all your bills, and if you had money left over, you would invest it. But for many people, there's never any money left over. And if there is money left over, you're thinking in the back of your mind of the potential bills that you're going to have in the future before you get paid again. Johnny needs braces. Susie needs shoes. You've already spent the money before you even got it. But here with the county, money comes directly out of your check and it's invested and the money's growing for you before you spend it. Okay. This is another chart or screen I like to show because I'm consistently being approached by folks that are, say, in their 50s. And they say, Gene, I saw your presentation 10 years ago. I wasn't moved by it and I never did it, but now I'm ready to go. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, it sure would have been nice if you started sooner. Because when you start late, you run the risk of telling yourself, I need to invest aggressively, or I need to put a ridiculous amount of money into deferred comp in order to make up for lost time. So here's a presentation, or here's a chart I like to show. Here's a person who's started with the county at age 25. They're contributing $300 per month, roughly $150 a paycheck, and they're investing in deferred comp, assuming a 6% rate of return for the next 40 years. Okay, this person will have roughly $575,000 in deferred comp. But say, hey, they didn't get to religion at age 25. They had kids, they bought their first home, they're dealing with student loans. So they've gotten their arms around those other financial planning issues and they've started to contribute at age 35. But they recognize that, hey, I'm behind, so maybe I should step it up. So they contribute roughly $500 a paycheck. Assuming a 6% rate of return for the next 30 years, you're looking at roughly $490,000. And here's an example of a participant who's age 45. They recognize they're behind the 8 ball and they're contributing roughly, let's see, let me move this over. Hold on one second. Bear with me here. Here we go. Move this up a little bit. Okay, so you're age 45. You're contributing $1,000 a month. For the next 20 years, you're looking at $455. Now, $455, that's a decent amount of money. But wouldn't it have been nice if they started sooner investing less, they'll have more money. So the whole point is it's important for you to start as soon as possible, because I can almost guarantee you, if you're young and you haven't started investing, you're eventually going to come back to me and say, hey, Gene, should I invest in deferred comp? And like I said before, you may be enticed to invest aggressively, or I may even tell you, well, in order for you to meet your retirement goals, you probably are going to need to put away the max. The max in deferred comp is roughly $26,000 a year, assuming you're 50 and over. That's roughly $1,000 a paycheck, and you may or may not be able to afford that. And I'm going to go into this a little bit. So many people come to me and they ask the question, how much should I save? Okay. And how much you should save, it's a personal thing. It depends on your personal situation. These are the questions you want to ask yourself. At what age do you plan on retiring? How many dependents will you have at the age in which you plan on retiring? Where are you going to retire? You're going to stay here in California? You're going to move to New York? You're going to go to Texas, Florida? Lifestyle do you anticipate living in retirement? Right? So much of it's guesswork. Can you guys hear me? I know I'm getting a note that says your internet connection is a little fuzzy, so hopefully everything's okay.
It cut out for just a split
retirement
second,
age.
It's good though.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So retirement age, as I mentioned before, maybe you want to retire at 67. I believe to get the most bang for your buck through Acera, you might want to wait until you're 60s, between 67 and 70. You got to wait a long time before you retire, right? But retirement age is important. I'd say in my experience working with county employees, folks tend to consider retirement at the soonest that they can collect Social Security, which is age 62. And that's when you really start thinking about it. But retirement age is important. And then you also want to stop and ask yourself, how many dependents do I have at home? Right? Many of you on this call are probably young. You don't even have kids yet. How do you know if you're going to have dependents? So it's really tough to tell, but chances are, you're going to have kids. They're going to have kids. You may have grandkids that are living with you that you may want to consider. You might want to pay for your grandchildren's education. You may have elderly parents living with you as a dependent. So that's going to require money. So those are some things you want to keep in mind when you're considering how much you're going to need in retirement. Okay, now let's talk about where you're going to live. I mean, obviously here, when you live on the coast, it's going to be very expensive, such as LA, New York. You may want to, go live in middle America where the cost of living is a little bit lower. But you have to ask yourself, okay, where am I going to live? Right? But I can tell you, at least in my experience, folks who retire tend to want to be near their grandchildren. So you may think right now, I'm going to move to middle America when I retire. But if your grandkids are in California, I can almost guarantee you, you're going to stay in California. So you might want to consider saving as if you're going to stay in California and you're going to have this high cost of living, but it all depends. But you want to keep that in mind. You also want to consider your lifestyle. I mean, maybe you're the type of person when you retire, you're comfortable of the lifestyle you currently live. It's very modest. But there are some of you that says, hey, I've broke my neck for the county for years. I've sacrificed for my children, my grandchildren, even for the county. It's my time. So maybe you've decided, hey, I'm going to go out and buy a brand new car. I'm going to buy that Mercedes I always wanted. Or I want to buy that, that really nice, fancy home in a retirement community. Maybe you feel that this is your time. So that's going to require putting away a little bit more money. Okay. Or maybe, you want to pay for your grandkids, 100% of your grandkids' education, and you got 10. Quite frankly, that's going to cost you a lot of money. So those are some things that you really want to think about. at age in which you're going to retire, if you're going to have dependents at home, and lastly, your lifestyle and where you're going to live. Those are things that are extremely important. Okay. How do I save? That's a big question. As I mentioned earlier, if you are investing in an IRA and you're under 50, you can invest $6,000. If you're 50 and over, the IRS will allow you to put away $7,000. But with deferred comp, if you're under 50, you can put away $19,500 a year, roughly $750 per paycheck. And if you're 50 and over, you can invest $26,000 a year, and that's roughly $1,000 a paycheck. Okay, but obviously here you can do somewhere in the middle. You can even start out at $20 if you choose. It's completely up to you, but I encourage each and every one of you, if you're not in the plan, start with something and then continue to build on that. Okay, so when you're investing in deferred comp, as I mentioned earlier, you can invest in a pre-tax basis or you can invest Roth. And here's an example of where investing pre-tax would truly benefit you. Okay, so on the left-hand side, this is a person who's investing $1, not in deferred comp, but they're just investing $1 in just a regular savings account, hypothetically. So for each dollar you invest, assuming you're in a 25% tax bracket, you're going to pay 25 cents in taxes, 75 cents is going to be invested. But if you invested pre-tax, that entire dollar will go into the plan. Okay. You do not have to pay taxes on that contribution. You don't pay it until you take it out. And as I mentioned before, going pre-tax, you're assuming you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. But if you believe or you think you might potentially be in a higher tax bracket, that's where the Roth version of deferred comp may make sense for you. Reduces you pay the taxes, but the growth of your assets is tax-free. So let's say hypothetically, you put $100,000 in the Roth 457, and that $100,000 over time grew to $500,000. There's $400,000 gain that you don't have to pay taxes on, provided that you qualify. How do you qualify? Well, you have to be, that's where an age requirement comes in. You have to be at least 59 and a half, and the account has to be open for at least 5 years. Most people will hit the 5 years easy. You may or may not hit the 59 and a half, depends on when you want to retire. But that's money that is tax-free to you. So that's something you might want to consider. You cannot exceed the max between the two. There are some people who want to do both because this is almost a guessing game. We don't know what the tax code is going to look like when you retire. So you may want to do both. Right? So if that's the case, just keep in mind, you cannot exceed the max between the two. So hypothetically, if you're 50 and over, you can do 13,000. You can do 13,000 in the pre-tax and then do 13,000 in the Roth. Okay. You cannot exceed the max between the two. Okay. There is a loan feature that's available to you. So if you're ever in a pinch, and you need access to your cash while you're working, you can take a loan out against deferred comp. The most you can take out is 50% or $50,000, whichever is less. And you pay that back through payroll deductions. And you pay that back with interest. But you don't pay the interest to a Prudential or to Emerge, my company, or to Mike or to Acera. You pay the interest back to yourself. And I'm sure one question is going to pop up. Okay, how much do I pay in interest? Well, you'll pay the prime rate plus 1%. Prime right now, as I believe it's at 3.25. So you would end up paying 4.25 in interest back into the account. Don't quote me on that. I'm thinking it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, there's two types of loans. There's a general purpose loan, and then there's a primary residence loan. The general purpose loan can be paid back over a 5-year period. The maximum is 5 years. Okay. And you can use the money for anything you want. There's also a primary residence loan where you can withdraw or take a loan out of 50% or $50,000, whichever is less, right? But you have a maximum of 15 years to pay it back. So obviously here, if you spread it out 15 years, if you amortize over a 15-year period, that's going to make that payment much, much smaller. So that may make sense for you. Okay, so enroll in the plan. What's the next step? So the next step is to log into the Prudential site. Go to prudential.com/retire-wow. Click on enroll. Once you've clicked on enroll, you're going to be asked to provide your employee ID number, your name, your birth date, and I believe your email address, and then we will send you a link to sign you up. Okay, I encourage everyone, log in, sign up, use the Goal Maker feature for now, Goal Maker with age adjustment. Basically how that works is you're investing your money, and then as you get closer and closer to retirement, the account gets more and more conservative. So sign up now, use Goal Maker, and then you can double back and have a conversation with me in terms of whether or not the Goal Maker feature makes sense for you. Okay. Once you've logged in and you've signed up, then I encourage everyone, after the first contribution is made, is to log back into this site and click on register. And that's where you would create a user ID and a password for the site so you can move money around, increase, decrease the amount of money that's going into deferred comp. There are a number of different tools on the site. There's a retirement planning calculator. It's called the retirement income calculator. It's a great retirement planning tool that Mike talked about earlier. I believe you guys you went into the Vanguard retirement planning calculator, but Prudential has a calculator online that you can use. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. You can also log on to schedule an appointment with either myself or with Jason or with Mark. Okay, so log into the site, sign up, and then at a later date, make sure you register for the site. And here's Mark, our pictures. There's Mark, myself, and then you have Jason, where we have years of experience. It doesn't cost you anything. Once we've had our conversation about deferred comp, feel free to ask questions, any other financial planning questions. There's no cost for that. You need some help with budgeting. Make sure I'm doing good on time. Budgeting, you need some help. You need life insurance. Should you purchase permanent or term? We can help you with that. Or say I want to save some money towards my children's education. Should I go with a 529 plan and UTMA? Should I use permanent life insurance to save towards my kids' education? So we can help you with those financial planning topics. Okay. To schedule an appointment with us, just call the number here, 855-969-4572. You'll hit option 3, and then it'll say, for Gene Hilliard, press 1. For Mark Tomei, press 2. You can also press 6 to speak directly with Jason Brummett. Okay? And as I mentioned before, you can log online, go to the Prudential site, Retire Wow, click on the financial guidance counselors, and then click on schedule an appointment. Okay. So with that, I'd love to entertain any questions folks may have.
We do have some questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
So let's see. Can you do both the deferred and Roth at the same time?
Okay, you certainly can. You can do the deferred comp pre-tax and the Roth, but remember, you cannot exceed the maximum. So remember, under 50, 19.5, over 50, 26,000. You just cannot exceed the max between the two. So that's a good question.
Does the county match any money you put into deferred comp?
Yeah, that's always a question that comes up. The county does not match with deferred comp. Feel as though the county's not taking care of you, because why? Because on the Acera side, the county's putting money in there on your behalf. I don't know what the calculation is in terms of max, but you're getting some free money on that side. I'm working with the powers that be to get you guys a match, but we're not there yet. So that's another good question.
Is there a guaranteed rate of return portfolio we can invest in so that our savings are not volatile with market changes?
Okay. Yes, there's the Alameda County Stable Value Fund that you can invest in. There's absolutely no risk. Right now, it's paying roughly 2% a year, but the interest rate could change quarterly. So absolutely, the Alameda County Stable Value Fund is the fund you want to invest in.
Can you start contributing to a 457B during your work probation period, or do you have to wait until after?
Okay. Well, in order to participate in the deferred compensation plan, you have to be a permanent employee. So if you're currently not permanent, you cannot contribute. But if you're permanent part-time, you can contribute. I don't know. Did that answer the question, Mike? I think that.
If you're permanent, can you say it one more time?
Yeah. If you're a permanent employee, whether
Mhm.
you're part-time or full-time, you can participate. So if you're, I believe it's, what do you guys call it? TAP? You're a TAP employee or temporary and you're not permanent, you cannot contribute in deferred comp.
So I think when they're saying probation, they are considered a permanent, like they're not a TAP employee, they're a retirement eligible employee, and so they are earning.
Okay, I got you.
So they can start contributing, right?
They can. Okay, you did say probation. Yeah, if you're permanent but you're just on probation, yes, you can contribute during that probation time.
Okay. How do you take out the loan from the 457B plan?
Okay. So there's a couple of ways in which you can take out a loan. You can call Prudential directly, tell them how much you want, which loan, whether it be general purpose or the primary residence, and then they'll do the calculation. Or you can go online and use the calculator. So you log on to the Prudential system, click on you want to take out a loan, click on how much you want to take out, then it'll tell you roughly how much you should expect to pay back each paycheck. So, like I said, either go online or contact Prudential directly for that. And you can certainly send an email or call me and I can help walk you through that process.
Great. And where can we find the list of all the investment options for 457B?
Okay, so log into the prudential.com/retire wow. And then I believe there's an area, just click on investments, and then you'll see the 12 PDF files called fund fact sheets. And it'll have information in terms of, the long-term rates of return. You'll get information in terms of fees and expenses associated with that fund. And then you'll also see how much risk that fund takes on. So that's some pertinent information I encourage everyone to take a look at.
Great. And we do have a question. When will the presentation be made available? So we're recording this and we will make it available within the next week out on our website. Okay. And we'll send out an email to all the attendees and the enrollees with a link to the video. Okay, what is the difference between 457B and regular deferred again? Is that question about being a deferred member of Acera? And so the 457, if that's the case, then the 457B plan is separate from Acera. So if you're a deferred member with Acera, that means that you are no longer actively working for the county or your employer, and you're just kind of in a on hold type of membership with Acera. And then the deferred compensation program is what Gene is talking about, where you're deferring some of your current pay to collect it later from the plan. Do you want to add anything to that, Gene?
That's correct. No, that's exactly correct. I know I'm getting an internet connection is unstable, so I'm probably.
So Gene, you might want to try.
How am I sounding?
You're sounding okay. It clips a little bit from time to time. You may want to try turning off your video, and then your full connection can go through in the audio.
Oh, okay, got it. Let's try that. Okay. No, I think you covered that question quite well, Mike. I think we're good to go, unless, of course, the person who's questioning or answering the question is still a little confused.
Okay. If an employee terminates employment with the county, and they're not talking about withdrawing their Acera membership, Acera membership. They're just talking about terminating their employment with the county. Will the 457B need to be withdrawn, or will you continue to manage the portfolio but with a service fee?
Okay, got it. So I can tell you this, once you've left county service, you have the option of leaving the money in deferred comp with Prudential. Still have access to it. You can still move money around, choose investments, et cetera. You just can't add to it. You have the option of taking a monthly disbursement if you choose until the money is exhausted. Hey, Gene, I want, I don't know, $5,000 a month or $2,000 a month until the account's exhausted. You could do that, or you can take money out quarterly or once a year, or you could just ask for money whenever you need it. So it's your money, self-directed. You can do whatever you want with it, with the exception of adding to it. You just can't no longer add to the plan.
Great. How do I roll over a 457B from a previous employer?
Okay. The first step is you sign up for deferred comp. The next step is you want to get your hands on what is called a rollover to Prudential form. And that's, you can find that form on the Prudential site, or you can just email me and I can forward it over to you. So you'll complete a rollover to Prudential form. You'll include a copy of your most recent statement from your former employer. And you would submit that to the treasurer's office, who's responsible for the plan. So you'd submit that. The next step is to contact your former employer and say, hey, listen, I got a new job. What's the process for rolling over my money from my previous plan? And so they will tell you there's paperwork. So you complete that paperwork. Or they just may even tell you, well, okay, we'll just check. So you just tell them, make the check payable to Prudential Retirement for my benefit. The check will be sent directly either to you for you to forward to Prudential, or for you to just forward that check directly, or they'll send the check directly to Prudential. So it's a pretty simple process.
Great. Can you sign up for a 457B at any time or only during open enrollment?
Okay, good question. You can sign up for a deferred comp at any time. There's no open enrollment. So whenever you're ready, if you want to, as soon as you get off this call, if you want to sign up, you can.
Can I convert some of my existing deferred comp to Roth?
Unfortunately, money that you currently have pre-tax cannot be converted to the Roth. The best thing you could do is to, going forward, ensure that your contributions are Roth. However, once you leave county service, you have the option of rolling the money to an IRA, the pre-tax bucket, into an IRA, and then converting it then. But while you're still working, unfortunately, you don't have the ability to convert pre-tax money to the Roth.
Great. For emergency purposes, is there a criteria in order to take out funds?
Okay. There is. If you're not looking to take a loan out and you want to take a withdrawal from your account while you're still working, there is criteria for that. It has to truly be an emergency, and it has to be approved by the county. There is a question and answer, details exactly what scenarios would allow you to take an emergency. I know off the top of my head, if you're foreclosed on, you need access to money. If there's death in the family, you need access to some of your money for funeral costs, etc. Your car breaks down, believe it or not, hey, I need my car to get to work. They'll allow you to take an emergency withdrawal. But again, it has to be approved by the county. And then the last thing is they're going to require that you at least apply for the loan first. And then if you've exhausted the loan aspect, then you can look towards the emergency withdrawal.
And that only goes for the 457B plan. That does not go for Acera. There is no provision for taking emergency funds out of Acera. Your contributions are locked in there, and unless you terminate your employment and request a refund. Okay, if we are already contributing to the plan but want to add a Roth plan, how do we add that?
Okay. So what you would do is you would log on to the Prudential site, prudential.com/retire wow. There's a button you can click to increase the amount of money that's going into deferred comp. Once you've clicked on that link, you'll have the ability to add whatever dollar amount you're interested in into the Roth. And that's called the payroll modification process.
Great. Is the State Street US Total Market Index Fund equivalent to VOO and VFIAX?
So when you say VOO, I'm assuming that's an ETF offered by Vanguard.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
That's what it sounds like. And that's typically going to be an index tied to the S&P 500. And I will tell you the State Street Fund that's currently available, it's not 100% S&P 500. Most of the stocks that they hold is S&P 500. Do have some small cap companies in there and some medium sized companies. State Street Fund. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it's pretty close.
Great. Does the 457B plan affect the amount, or I guess the timing of when you can withdraw from the Acera account? Do we need to withdraw from one account first when we retire? And when you say withdraw from the Acera account, you're also saying the word retire. So I'm assuming you mean, tell me if this is wrong. I'm assuming you mean start receiving your retirement allowance. And I think the short answer is it's two different timings, but maybe you can go into that, Gene.
Yeah. So yeah, it's as soon as you leave county service, whether you retire or you quit, you have access, regardless of what's going on with Acera, you have access to your money. So they're completely separate plan. One's a defined benefit, one's a defined contribution plan. They're separated. Again, with Prudential, as long as you've separated service, you have access to your money.
And regarding the timing of your retirement allowance, it won't have anything to do with what you do with your 457B account. So your timing for your retirement is just going to be based on whether you're eligible to retire and whether you feel it's time to retire or not. And then we'll get the process going for you. Okay, what is the penalty for the monthly disbursement?
There is no penalty. As I mentioned before, regardless of your age, you have access to your money. Now, if you're referring to taxes on disbursements, Prudential will automatically withhold 20% federal and 3% state. 20 federal, 3% state. You'll get 1099 at the end of the year that tells you and your accountant how much you've withdrawn, how much you've paid in taxes, federal and state, and then you'll settle up with your accountant. And if 20% was too much, you'll get that back as a refund. And if 20% wasn't enough, then you just cut a check for the difference.
Great. If I currently have a Roth, would that be eligible, or would it be wise to roll over or keep it at SoFi?
Okay, so sounds like you have a Roth IRA with SoFi. Unfortunately, Prudential will not allow rollovers in of after-tax Roth money. So you don't have much of a choice. You'd have to leave it where it is. Prudential will only accept rollovers in of pre-tax money, at least for now.
Okay. When we retire, do we ask to put some money to the federal withholding, and how much can we put in the federal side? Regarding Acera, you fill out a withholding form, and we will withhold your federal taxes at whatever you specify in the withholding form. And maybe you could speak to the 457B plan.
Yeah, with deferred comp, 457B, once you've taken a disbursement, like I said before, we're going to withhold 20% federal, 3% state. If you want to withhold more, you certainly can. And it's withholding. It's not necessarily the actual tax. It's just the withholding. And then you, as I mentioned before, you'd settle up once you filed your tax return.
Great. Can I add money to 457B directly, or can it only come from my paycheck?
Okay. So money has to come from your paycheck. There's no way around that. So if you have money sitting in a credit union, you can't write a check and put it in deferred comp. You can indirectly move that money in deferred comp. And what do I mean by that? You can increase the amount of money that's coming out of your paycheck, right? Increase that dollar amount. Say you want to put half your paycheck into deferred comp. You have $100,000 in the credit union, and you want to put $26,000 in deferred comp for a year, hypothetically. You can tell us, Gene, take half my paycheck. Once you get paid, you're short. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm short. I got 1 cent, or I have $1,000. I need another $1,000 to pay my bills. You just go to that credit union account to pay your bills. So you're indirectly moving that money in. And then once your savings account dwindles down to a number that you feel comfortable with, say 4, 6 months worth of expenses, you could just come back to me and say, Gene, put it to 100 or 200 or whatever it was before.
Sounds good. During the rollover, when the check is provided to us, we won't be taxed on that, correct?
That is correct, provided that you completed the rollover to Prudential form, and you also completed the rollover form of your former employer. If you do that, then the check will be made payable to Prudential for your benefit. There are no taxes. But if you went to your former employer and said, hey, give me my money, I want to withdraw it, then it's going to be taxable. I mean, you can still roll it in. There's a couple of more steps that you'd have to take in terms of a 60-day rollover, but it's going to be considered a lump sum withdrawal. So you don't want to do that. Come talk to us first. Let me walk you through the process. Sure, it's not a taxable event.
Great. Can you explain Roth and 457?
Okay. The Roth, or well, I'll say the 457, that's where you're investing pre-tax. Reduces your taxable income. So you're deferring taxes today and you pay your taxes later. The Roth, on the other hand, the Roth 457, you're paying taxes today, and the money grows tax-free. So one, you're deferring taxes in order to pay the taxes later. That's the 457 or the pre-tax version. The Roth is you're paying the taxes today. You don't have to pay any taxes in the future, provided that you qualify. Again, how do you qualify? You have to be at least 59 and a half, and the account has to be open for at least 5 years.
Great. Can you convert a 403B to 457?
That's another good question. You cannot. So I have tons of people who are rolling over a 403B into deferred comp, and they're assuming that it's going to take on the 457 rules where you avoid having to pay a penalty, and that is not the case. Once it's labeled 403 money, it's considered 403 money, and it's subject to tax penalties. The other point I'd like to bring up is if, for example, you leave county service or you retire from the county and you roll over your deferred comp money into an IRA, unfortunately, you lose the ability to access your money penalty free. It now takes on the traditional IRA rules where you're subject to 59 and a half penalties and the taxes. So be very careful about rolling your deferred comp money out into an IRA once you leave county service.
And we did already address this, but maybe you could touch on it quickly. Do all contributions have to come from payroll deductions?
Yeah. All the contributions must come from your paycheck, payroll deductions. Sure.
So when I'm ready to start a deferred comp account, do I need to just contact HR or Acera?
Okay. Acera's not involved. All you would really need to do is if you work for the county, you just go on the Prudential site, prudential.com/retire wow. Now, if you work for the fire department, or if you work for First Five, or if you work for courts, then you would want to contact HR to set up your account. You cannot sign up online. You'd have to go to your HR for
And
those sub plans.
and we do have more information about signing up under our other employers besides the county out on that retirement planning page, which again is acera.org/planning, or it's called Planning Your Future Retirement Income, and it's under the members subheading. And then how much can we withhold federal and state? Is that like how much maximum can we withhold? Maybe.
How much can we withhold? I don't know if they're talking about the max to deferred comp. That's the 26,000 and the 19.5. You're talking about taxes on withdrawals. The minimum is 20 and the 3. Obviously, do more if you choose. You'll just tell us how much more than the 20%. If you want to withhold 50% on your disbursement, you can. Same for the state. Hopefully that answers that person's question.
Yeah, the same goes for Acera. You can, I think if I remember the tax form correctly, the less numbers you have, the higher the withholding. But then there's also a line where you can withhold an additional dollar amount. So I don't know what the max is, the whole paycheck, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not tax people. We
Yeah.
encourage you talk to your CPA, talk to your tax planner if you're looking for tax advice.
Yeah. And then if we do Roth, did you say that it's at least 55, and I guess that means a half, because I couldn't hear what you said. How much is the tax now if it's going to the Roth?
Okay, so if you're contributing to deferred comp, and the question is and you want to invest Roth after tax, the question is how much taxes will you end up? That's whatever your tax bracket or whatever your withholding is on your paycheck. So if you're considered single one, whatever tax rate is on single one on that contribution, that's how much you're going to be paying in taxes.
Okay. And then the follow-up is I'm talking about when I retire and I'm getting money out from the 1099.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like I'm contributing to the Roth 457, hire from the county. If you're at least 59 and a half and the account has been open for at least 5 years, no taxes on the gain. You pay zero tax.
Great. And that is the last 457B question. I have a bunch of Acera questions to answer.
Okay.
Maybe if anyone has like a final question for Gene, you can go ahead and ask it, and I'll do a few Acera questions. And if no more 457B questions come through, we'll let Gene go.
Okay.
So going back to the top of the list, how does Social Security payments contribute through FICA affect Acera's payments at retirement? Oh, I think I already did that one. Let's see. They don't really. The fact that you're contributing to Social Security there's a Social Security reduction that will reduce your retirement by a tiny amount. If you go to that, you can see what the reduction is, and it's a tiny amount. It's not based on how much you're collecting from Social Security. It's like this weird math equation that might reduce your Acera retirement by like $10 or $15. And if you really want to dig into what that equation is, if you go to acera.org/planning, and under the first section, getting an estimate, if you click on number 4 and use the worksheet, it will show you how that calculation is done. But mostly you don't have to worry about it. If you just go on our website, use the benefit estimator, it's going to estimate your retirement with that little tiny Social Security amount taken out just in the estimator. Let's see. Are benefits paid to beneficiaries based on the age of the beneficiary? In other words, does the person need to be a minor? Well, for the active member benefits, if you die as an active member, who your beneficiary is whoever you name, and the benefits aren't. I don't think they're affected by um, the age, but let me check that out real quick. This one. So if we go to the death benefits page, and we go under active member death benefits, this column, who the beneficiary can be, if it's a lump sum, the beneficiary can be anyone. If it's a non-service connected death allowance, the beneficiary has to be a spouse or let me move these windows out of the way, or say registered domestic partner. And so that's the continuing payment, and that will go for the rest of their life, and it's regardless of age. Now for the eligible children, and this is only if there's no surviving spouse or state registered domestic partner, they can get a monthly allowance, but it will stop at age 18, or it can continue to age 22 if they maintain enrollment as a student in an accredited school, but it will cut off. So that's kind of like, it doesn't matter what age they are, but the length of time that they're collecting the death benefit is going to be based on how soon you died before they were 18, basically. And so that's kind of the only age caveat for the active death benefits. Now for the retired death benefits, if you scroll down and you go to the retired death benefits page, there's more details about how the age can affect your payment as a Acera retiree, can affect your retirement allowance. So that might be something that you want to dig into. Okay, let me see if there's any other 457B questions. There are not. So I think,
Okay.
Gene, if you'd like, you're free to hang out if you want, but feel free to leave as well.
Okay, gotcha. Well, again, for those that are still on the line, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present to you folks today. And just know that if there's anything I can help you with from a financial planning perspective, please do not hesitate and reach out. It'll be my honor. So with that, I'll hand it back to Mike, and I'll see you next time, Mike. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, Gene. See you next
All right,
time.
my pleasure. Mhm.
Okay, the next question. When we retire, can we still change our vesting? So, no, because the amount of service credit you will have earned, like, you need to be vested to retire, first of all. So you have to be vested. And then after you retire, you can't change the amount of service credit that you have. Whatever amount of service credit you have at the time of retirement, that's what we're going to use to calculate your retirement allowance. Okay, if a financial collapse is coming, would it be reasonable to lower our contributions? So you cannot change your contribution amount to Acera. Your contribution rate is set if you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3 based on your age when you enter Acera. If you're in tier 4, it's a flat rate that everybody pays the same. But whatever it is for you, your contribution rate can't change. So you're going to owe your contributions to the fund, and that rate isn't going to change based on the financial conditions that we experience. So you can't lower your contributions. Now, if you were going to lower your contributions to deferred compensation, that might be up to you. And if you can predict a financial collapse coming, let me know. Okay, next question. If you leave your job before you're vested, how much time do you have to go back without losing your previous retirement? I don't think there's a limit on that. So while you're still alive is what I would say. So let's say that you leave your job before you're vested. You work 4 years, you stop working, and let's say you worked from 20 to 24. and you come back 50 years later, let's say 40 years later, at age 64, and you want to work that extra year to get over the vesting requirement, I think you could do that as long as you maintain your deferred status throughout that intervening 40 years. You could do that. So I don't think there's a limit on that. And then the question is, can you briefly talk about buying back service? And you're a military reservist, and you were told about that phrase. So that would be actually, let me stop this share and let me go back to the presentation. So this is under the heading of earning service credit. So you have the service credit that you're earning, right? And then there are these types of time that are eligible for you to purchase additional service credit. So when they're talking about purchasing service credit, and it sounds like you're a military reservist, it sounds like it would be the military leave during membership. So if you're a reservist and you're actively working your county job or for one of our participating employers, and you're called up to military duty and you go on that military leave and you go out to do that military duty, whenever you return from that military leave, you can buy that time as a Acera service credit, so that you don't kind of lose the time where you were out doing your service for our country, basically. How about EFMLA? I remember seeing something about that when contacting Acera. I don't know what EFMLA is. I don't know what the E stands for. FMLA is Family Medical Leave Act. Maybe if you're still on the line, you could say something about that. But if you're talking about FMLA, that is the FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, is a federal law that says that you can't be fired for going on family leave for various reasons. And so it's designated as FMLA time for the purposes of you retaining your employment. Now, when you go on leave from your job, and if it's medical leave that you're going on, you might go on sick leave, and that's categorized as FMLA time, and so you're using your accruals. And so if you remember, while you're out on sick leave, you're already earning service credit. Now let's say you're out on this medical leave for so long that you run out of your earned time, and now you're on unpaid medical leave. So that unpaid time would become purchasable whenever you return from that leave. And so that's how that works. And then I'm seeing the follow-up is emergency FMLA due to COVID, and it's the same as regular FMLA. So if it's the same as regular FMLA, then the explanation that I just gave still stands. So as long as you're getting paid your paycheck because you're using your leave balances, then you're already earning service credit. So you don't even have to worry about making the service credit purchase. Now, whenever you run out of those leave balances, and it's one of these categories of leave that is eligible for purchase, then when you return from that leave, the part that you didn't get paid for already, that becomes purchasable. And that is how you are able to include that in your service credit for the purposes of us calculating your retirement. Okay, and so yeah, and then there was another question, does FMLA count as service credit? It does if you're using your leave balances. It doesn't if you've run out of your leave balances. Do you earn service time during disability that is paid with the sick time state disability? So with the state disability insurance leave, That's usually medically related. But often what happens is your employer is paying you partially. You get like a partial paycheck from your employer, and you get a partial paycheck from the state disability insurance system. So the part that you got paid from your employer, and it's often I won't say that. The part that you got paid from your employer, you're already getting service credit for that portion of the time, so you don't need to purchase it. Now, the portion of the time that you're getting paid from the state disability insurance leave, when you return from that leave, then that would become purchasable time. So it's kind of like a partial time that you would be eligible to purchase. Next question. If you buy service credit due to disability, do you buy your share plus the county's share? And like I was just saying, no, because for the county's share, you're already earning the service credit for the county's share. So you would only need to purchase the state disability share. Okay, next question. How does retirement age get factored in if you leave the job before you retire? So you retire from another job. Okay, I know what you're saying. You stop working here, you become a deferred member, and then you go work another job. And then at some point in the future, you retire from Acera out of deferred retirement. The good news is that we are going to use your age at retirement, not your age when you stopped working. So if you were 40 when you stopped working and when you go to retire you're 50, even if you were a deferred member for 10 years, we're still going to use your age at 50, and you're going to get that age factor percentage in the formula for you. Next question. If time was, and thank you all for sticking around for all these questions. If you don't want to stick around, I'm going to go ahead and edit this so that all of the questions are going to be in the video. So if you need to go, you can, we'll send, I was getting some questions about when we're going to send this out. Whenever we post this, we're going to post it on YouTube within the next week, and then we'll send out a link to the YouTube video so you can watch it at your leisure. And so we'll email that to you. Also, if you don't see the email, we're also going to post it out on the website. Okay, next question. If time was transferred through reciprocity to Acera, that still counts as vesting, correct? Well, when you establish reciprocity, you're not really transferring your time to Acera. It's more that you're linking two systems together. So for example, if you worked for 5 years in Contra Costa County, and then you get a job in Alameda County, and you come over here and start working, and you link those two systems together, the 5 years that you worked for Contra Costa County stays with Contra Costa County. And then whatever additional time you work for Acera would be your time that you work with Acera. So let's say that you work 15 years with the county, so you earn 15 years of service credit with Acera. And then you go to retire. Well, since you have reciprocity, you're going to retire from both systems on the same day. And so we're both going to do a calculation. Acera is going to do our calculation based on your 15 years of service credit with Acera in this example, plus your salary, assuming you were making a higher salary here, and then your age factor percentage for your tier at Acera. Over at Contra Costa County, they're also going to do their own calculation. That means that they're going to use your 5 years of service credit that you have over at Contra Costa County. They're going to use your highest salary that you earned under any of the systems, so probably your Acera salary. So we're going to tell them what your salary was for the purposes of calculating your retirement over there. And then your age factor percentage for their system is going to be based on whatever tier you're in over there. And so we each do our calculation, and then we each send you a check. And so you get kind of two separate retirements from each one of the systems, even though we kind of share information to calculate your retirement. Okay, there was a question that you were confused by the percentage chart that showed the okay, I see what the question is. There was a confusion between the age factor percentages. So it was a confusion between this chart and the ballpark salary replacement chart. And I think I said this in the presentation. In that ballpark salary chart, we've already taken for all of the scenarios, we've taken the age factor percentage and multiplied it by the years of service credit, and that's why the percentages are so much higher. How do I update contact info and beneficiary info? If you're an active member, you update your contact information through your employer. So you would do that through your payroll clerk to update the database, and all of that data goes through in whenever they send their transmittal of your payroll data to us, to our database, so that we can keep track and do our pension calculations. So all that contact info comes over. For the beneficiary info, you go to our forms page on our site, acera.org/forms, and there's a beneficiary designation form in there, and you would submit that to us. And there's instructions on the form on how to submit it. Okay. Let's see. So the question is about the county's investment of our pension contributions. How high or low risk is the portfolio? And specifically, are there external threats to the county's investment of pension contributions? And you're thinking about the 2008 worldwide financial crisis. Okay, so I'm not an investments expert. One thing that I can point you to is out on our website. If you go under About Acera and you go down to, sorry, I clicked on it. You can get to it over here. You go to investments. What you can do is click on current investment portfolio, and that shows you what our current mix of assets is. And there's usually a lag time. That's why it says September 30th, because we haven't fully calculated it for the fourth quarter last year yet. But you can see that we're invested in U.S. stocks, international stocks, bonds, real estate, private equity, and then there's these other kind of niche asset classes that we invest in. And so that's our current mix. If you want more information about kind of like the risks involved in the current investment climate, I think a great thing to do, especially during the pandemic, where we're doing all of our meetings virtually, all of our meetings are on Zoom, is you can attend our investment committee meeting by going to board and committee meetings. Sorry, it keeps the share is affecting my ability to hover over the hover menus. So you go out to the board and committee meetings and click on investment committee meeting, and you can attend these meetings live over Zoom. Like we already had our February meeting, and the March meeting is going to be on March 10th, and when it gets closer to the time, they'll post the Zoom link there, and you can just watch. We have like world-class investment managers come and present to our board, because we're such a big fund that we get all kinds of interesting investments that retail investors don't have access to, and a lot of the people who present are they're experts and they're very articulate, and it's really interesting. If you don't want to watch it live, you just kind of want to flip through some of our materials. We post the packets ahead of time, and all of the past investment committee packets are here, and there's a ton of information in here that you can kind of leaf through different market analyses and various things that have to do with our portfolio. So I would say that that's your kind of best bet. If you do want like a summary of I think that's kind of like your best bet. And there's a lot of risk analyses that happen that you can kind of leaf through in these investment committee packets. Next question. When I was off on workers' comp twice, did I accumulate leave time? So if you I'm not sure of the answer to this question. So what I think your best bet would be to go back to your pay stubs. If you were being paid your salary during that time where you were off because for whatever reason you were using your leave times or otherwise, if you look at your pay stubs, you'll see if you accrued leave time during that time. So I'm not exactly sure. Next question. I purchased 6 years of service in one lump sum. Cool. And as a permanent for only 1 year, am I qualified to retire after 2 years as a permanent employee? Probably. Let's go back to the presentation and explore that. Okay, under the service credit, you purchased service in one lump sum. So if it was one of these types of time, these count toward vesting. Okay, so that would mean that you have 2 years plus 6 years, so you would have 8 years total. And let's see, I think there might be a follow-up. Okay. So I think I would need to know more information about this, but we'll assume that if it was other prior public service time, then no, that would not count toward vesting. But let's assume that it was one of these types of time. So that means that you have 6 years plus 2 years is 8 years. Okay, so then what I would do is go to the page with the retirement eligibility scenarios, wherever that is. There it is. And I would see if you meet one of these scenarios. So assuming that your 8 years counts is all vested, is all years that count toward being vested, like the 6 years that you purchased. You have a total of 8 years, and if you're over age 50 and you're in, let's say that you're in tiers 1, 2, or 3, that would not give you the ability to retire, because you would have to have 10 years of membership. So you would have to wait an additional 8 years before you could retire, unless you achieved age 70, and then you could retire with that 8 years of service credit. Now, if you're tier 4, it would be different. If you're tier 4, and let's say you're a general member, as long as you're age 52, or as a safety member, as long as you're age 50, that 8 years would give you the qualification to be able to retire. Okay, next question. How does Acera compare with private sector pension plans? So we kind of touched on this a little bit. They're pretty different. Acera is a defined benefit pension plan, which means it doesn't matter how much you contribute to the fund. Your retirement is not going to be based on that. It's going to be based on the 3-factor formula of how much credit you've earned in those 3 areas of age, service credit, and salary. So depending on, so it would depend on how much retirement you earn in order to kind of gauge how much you're going to get out of it. One way that it differs is that it's guaranteed for life, so you can't outlive your retirement, versus like the 457B plan or a 401k or an IRA. If you were trying to depend on that alone, that is a finite amount of money that can run out. So you could run out of your savings at some point in retirement, versus Acera, which is a lifetime retirement allowance. Otherwise, I can't really compare the value of the contributions you're making to it, besides to say what I said earlier, which is that you're going to contribute a certain amount out of your paycheck throughout your career, but then if you pick the highest option, the unmodified option, when you retire, you're going to get all that money back within the first 3 to 5 years, and then everything after that is like pure profit for you. So that's kind of how they compare. Does let's see. I'm not sure what that was referring to. Sorry. Okay, can I say more about the Medicare subsidy? Just really briefly about it. When you are Medicare eligible in retirement, you can enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan through Acera or another Medicare linked plan through Acera, which gives you a higher level of coverage than Medicare alone. Or you cannot, or you can just enroll in straight Medicare and forget about the extra higher level of coverage that Acera offers. Regardless, if you enroll in Medicare as a retiree, that's going to come with a charge for Medicare Part B, which is the doctor's visits portion of Medicare. And the federal government, I think the current charge is somewhere around $158 maybe off the top of my head per month that you pay to be enrolled in Medicare Part B. And so what the Medicare Part B subsidy reimbursement plan does for you is it pays you into your Acera check. It basically covers the lowest cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B, which currently, like I said, is like $158. So you would see that $158 go into your Acera paycheck if you had at least 10 years of Acera service credit when you retired. Does the county match any percentage of one's 457 contribution? We already covered that. They don't, because the county is contributing to Acera. Next question. If we are Tier 2 now and we leave the county and come back to work for the county in a few years, do we come back with the Tier 2 level, or would we route back at Tier 4? You would be Tier 2. That is one of the advantages of deferring your retirement and not taking a refund, because when you defer your retirement, you maintain your membership and you maintain your tier. So if you came in at Tier 1, you stop working, you become a deferred member, you go do something else, and then you come back. Whenever you come back, you're still going to be in Tier 2. If when you left, you took a refund and then you tried to come back and redeposit that, then you would go into Tier 4. Okay, next question. Can you roll Acera over years after you terminate employment into an IRA? Is there a time limit? I don't think there's a time limit. So this is referring to the fact that when you become a deferred member, you can still take a refund at any time during your deferred status. So if you decide years later that you do want to take that refund and roll it over into an IRA, you can. And I don't think there's a time limit, at least before retirement age. That would be something to consult with a probably like a tax advisor about, regarding the rules around rolling things into an IRA. But as far as we're concerned, I don't think there's a limit. Next question. If there is extra money in the fund, would retirement benefits go up? Generally not, because the level, well, let's talk about the vested benefit first of all. Your vested benefit is based on kind of like it's based on what tier you're in. And so the percent of your salary that you're going to get for each year of service is kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about benefit levels for the pension fund, for the vested retirement allowance. And so your tier is going to be your tier. And so those percentages don't change. That, like, the set of percentages that belong to you based on which tier you're in. And the only way that they would change is if at some point in the future your employer decided that, no, because they can't do it anymore. They would not be legally able to put you, to like create a higher tier and put you in it, because the ability to do that stopped with the Pension Reform Act that was passed in 2012. So they wouldn't even be able to create a higher tier anymore, unless the state law changed, which I don't foresee happening. So that's not going to happen. Now that's the vested benefits. Regarding the non-vested benefits, the non-guaranteed benefits, that extra set of benefits that I was talking about, so medical, dental, vision, Medicare subsidies, supplemental COLA, if the way that's funded is it gets regular interest posted to it, that reserve fund gets regular interest posted to it whenever the fund makes money, plus it has this extra amount of money that can go into it sometimes when we make more money than we have projected. Half of the extra that we didn't, that like over what we projected, will dump into that reserve fund. And so that's why money sometimes piles up in that fund. And that reserve fund is called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve. So if that fund gets becomes really strong and a lot of money goes in there, it's possible that the levels of benefits for those healthcare benefits and non-guaranteed benefits could go up. The Board of Retirement could decide to increase the levels of benefits for those benefits only. Can we roll over to the bank if we retire? So if you're asking, if you retire from Acera and start collecting your monthly retirement allowance, can you deposit it directly into a bank account? Yes, and in fact, we mandate that you sign up for direct deposit. And so we can deposit your Acera retirement allowance directly into your bank account. There was a question, what's the difference between those different calculators that I was demonstrating? Let me go ahead to that part of the presentation. You'll see when you click on these, all the buttons are on the retirement planning page. You'll see that they're all a little bit different. The reason that I picked these is because they all allow you to put in an amount for Social Security, and they all allow you to put an amount for your Acera pension, and then they consider those types of retirement income when they are telling you how much more you need to save for retirement in order to achieve the income replacement that you're looking for. That's the similarity between them. Otherwise, they're pretty different. They'll all give you kind of a different number. I usually recommend trying a few different ones out, because that will kind of give you a more diverse opinion on how much additional you should be saving. So that's kind of the answer to that. And then the question was, when you say saving 100 or 5,000, is that how much you have in the bank already? So this is a screenshot of the Vanguard calculator I was showing you. And I think I was typing in, yeah. So I was putting like 1,000 or 5,000 in here. And this field is for how much you're saving annually. And this is the field that I was adjusting so that the two graphs would meet. And so this would tell you, when they finally meet, this would tell you, kind of give you a rough idea of how much additional you should save per year in order to achieve the income replacement goal that you are pointing your savings at. Next question. Does it have to be minor children to allocate part of your retirement? Let me come right back to that question, and I can actually go into a little detail on that. Can you go back on taking? Okay, can you go back on? If you retire after 20 years of service, what happens to your medical? If you achieve 20 years of Acera service credit, you will be eligible for the full monthly medical allowance amount, which currently is $550 some per month, to pay for the cost of being enrolled in one of Acera's medical plans. If you've never taken time off and you don't have to purchase service credit, should the total service credit be the years of service that you've worked minus the 2 weeks when you started service with Acera? Sort of. It'll be close, but there's a lag time in the data online, and it could be 2 to 4 weeks less. If it's more than 2 to 4 weeks, there's more than 2 to 4 weeks missing, that's when you would want to contact us, send us an email and ask about that, and maybe we can do a service audit for you. and go back and make sure your service credit amount is correct. Okay. And then there was a comment here, while on workers' comp time, the temporary disability payments. You are welcome. While on workers' comp time, the temporary disability payments are not counted towards service credit. Only the supplemental sick leave / part-time leave balances you used will count toward service time. Yes. So this is just saying that if you're out on disability leave and you're using your sick leave balances, and that's how you're getting paid through your employer, then you will receive service credit for that already, and it's just the disability portion where you're not getting paid through your employer that you're not getting service credit for that becomes purchasable. Okay, and then the last question, and then we will bring this to a close. Does it have to be a minor child to allocate part of your retirement? And for that, I will go out to our website. Is this it? Yes. And go to our death benefits page at acera.org/death. And then I'm going to scroll down to the retiree death benefits section here, and there's a whole death benefits for retirees page. The death benefits that are available to your beneficiaries based on your retirement option that you select at the time of retirement are listed out on this page. So there's 5 different retirement options. There's the unmodified option, and then options 1, 2, 3, and 4. For the unmodified option, you can name a minor child as your beneficiary for a continuance payment, but it's not a lifetime continuance. So you're going to get, as if you pick the unmodified option, you're going to get your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. And then when you die, your beneficiary, if it's one of these people, a spouse, a registered domestic partner, or minor children, will get a continuance payment every month. If it's spouse or domestic partner, they would get it for the rest of their life. If it's minor child, then it would only be up to age 18, and then it would stop unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school, and then it can continue until age 22. That's for the unmodified option. If you pick one of the other options, 2, 3, or 4, you can name a minor child or minor children, and you can name multiple beneficiaries as minor children under option 4, and they could get a lifetime continuance payment. That's something that you would want to decide more toward when it gets time to retire, though. If you're talking about active death benefits, well, you said allocate part of your retirement, so I think you're talking about retired death benefits. So yeah, it's something that you would want to consider more toward, when you're going to retire. And then finally, there's one final question. For the monthly medical allowance, is that $500+ for medical? Is that for both you and your spouse, or is it just for you? It's just for you, so it's only one payment to go to pay for the cost of your expenses only. You can enroll your spouse, but the subsidies don't cover any of their costs. All right, thank you for hanging around for that. We had so many participants and so many questions that it kind of stretched out a bit. So thanks for sticking around. I wish you an amazing career, and I wish you a beautiful life. So thank you so much.